React 16.6 was recently released, and I'm going to show you what, in my opinion, is its best new feature, and that is the React.memo function. So there were a few new features added in the 16.6 update, but I'm going to show you the one I thought was the most useful, and that, like I said, is React.memo. In order to showcase its usefulness, I've built a small app. So here I have a controller component. It has two items in the state. One is unused number, and the other is count. There are two buttons, one to increment each of the state values, and I then have two components. They each take the count from the state as a prop. Looking at the components, we can see that they are both fairly similar. They both take count as a prop, and they output the count as well as the name of the component. They both also log to the console when they render. One of them, my pure component, is implemented as a class which extends React.pureComponent. The other is a function-based component called myFunctionComponent. So with the console open, we click to increment the unused number. You can see from the console that each time I click this, the function component re-renders, but the pure component doesn't. What's happening here is that each time I click the controller component state updates, so it re-renders. The two child components both receive props again, but this is the count which is unchanged. Now the pure component won't re-render because the props haven't changed. Pure components check their props and only re-render if they have changed. Function-based components will always re-render when they receive props. Up until the latest update, you can't stop that. We also have a different button to update the count. When we press it, both components re-render as the props are different for both components. Although this is a minor thing, not being able to stop function components re-rendering is a pain in the arse, as us Brits say. Rendering a component is a fairly expensive operation, so if you're dealing with an app where lots of components need to re-render, or one that causes components to re-render very frequently, there can be performance issues. Up until now, the only way to stop this in a function-based component would be to convert it into a class and make it extend pure component. This has always seemed to me like an unnecessary overhead when you don't want to use any of the other stuff a class gives you, like for example state. And this is where React.memo comes in. We simply wrap our function in a call to React.memo. Memo is short for memoize, a concept from functional programming where you cache a function's result and then just return the cached value if it is called again with the same arguments. Wrapping a function in React.memo makes it behave like a pure component. It will only re-render if its props change. I honestly don't see any reason not to wrap your components in this as standard. Now when we go to the browser and we click to update the unused value, neither of our components update. However, when we increment the count, they still both update. I'll briefly tell you about the other new 16.6 features. So there is React.lazy. This allows you to easily dynamically load components when using code splitting. For those of you that don't know what code splitting is, it works like this. By default, when building with Webpack, all of your JavaScript gets bundled into one JS file, which a user's browser has to download and parse before the app loads. Now, this is fine for small sites, but can cause unacceptably long load times for large single-page apps, especially on mobile. The solution for this is that Webpack allows you to dynamically load modules so they aren't included in the main bundle, and the user's browser only gets them when needed. This makes the main bundle smaller. This is great for large modules which are only needed for certain pages of your app. They'll just load in on demand when a user visits the relevant page. By using a combination of React's suspense and lazy features, you can lazy load in React components and show a loading indicator while the browser is downloading any lazy loaded components. There's also a nicer way to get variables from the context within a class-based component, so you don't have to use render props, which in my opinion are a bit meh, so this is a nice new feature. I have new videos going out regular as clockwork every Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday at 9 AM Eastern Time. Click that subscribe button now and don't miss them.